Coming up on Locked On NFL Game Night, we'll talk about how Drake May did something even Tom Brady couldn't do. He went into Denver and beat the Broncos in a snowstorm to advance to Super Bowl 60. We're here to break it all down and more. Let's go.
The clock may have hit zero, but the conversation is just kicking off. This is Locked On NFL Game Night. From the early window thrillers to the 4 o'clock fireworks, and of course the Thursday night spotlight, we've got you covered with all the jaw-dropping touchdowns, head-scratching calls, and the hot takes you'll be talking about tomorrow. You'll find it all here every week. The game may be over, but the conversation is just getting started. This is Locked On NFL Game Night.
What is up, everybody? It's Fabs here. He is Swipa, and welcome to Locked On NFL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And Swipa, we know at least one team that's going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man, we'll get into it a little bit here, but obviously congratulations to the New England Patriots to get into the Super Bowl. But I got to tell you, man, this definitely felt like if Bo Nix didn't crap his ankle out at the end of the game in overtime versus the Bills, we could have a different outcome. But Drake May, who I think wasn't good in this game, won the game with his legs in a lot of ways. But look, Jarrett Stidham, you come into a game, you got to be able to take advantage of the ball. One turnover changed the complete outcome of the game.
Yep, and we're going to talk about that game and much more. And as always, we thank you, the listeners, for listening to Locked On NFL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, recapping all the action from the NFL postseason with insights from local experts the way only Locked On can. And on today's show, we're going to talk about how Drake May and the Patriots beat the Broncos to advance to Super Bowl 60. Then we'll discuss the Ravens hiring of former Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. What does it mean for Baltimore moving forward? And we'll finish up with the Steelers hiring Mike McCarthy as their new head coach. Should Pittsburgh fans be happy with the move or maybe not? We've got all that for you and more. And of course, we appreciate you making us your first listen and being an everyday listener on the show, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right. So Swiper, let's start off with it. The Patriots, they go into Denver. There was a driving snowstorm in the second half, not a lot of offense. The Patriots take home the win 10-7. And like you said, Drake May didn't look great. He had 86 passing yards and a passer rating of 58.8, but that's going to happen when you have weather like that, plus really good defense. Ultimately, he did enough, and most of it was with his legs, as you mentioned, to get the Patriots to the Super Bowl. Let's check in with Nick Cattles for more with Locked On Patriots.
Oh my freaking goodness. The Patriots are headed to the Super Bowl in the middle of a blizzard in Denver. Can you freaking believe what we just saw? Mike Vrabel, just so smart. His usage of the clock late in this game. Drake May with the huge conversion to end this football game. The Patriots' magical carpet ride continues. They head to the Super Bowl. They will get the winner of the Rams and the Seahawks. But man, oh man, the run game really was the difference, including Drake May's ability to break, contain, come up with some chunk plays. But the Patriots are Super Bowl bound. We will react to this coming up on Locked On Patriots. Boy, oh boy, I can't freaking believe it.
Somebody sounds happy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you should be, they ran for 141 yards in this game, Fabs, and Ramondre Stevenson, 2.8 yards a carry. But the thing that he did is he kept the ball moving forward. And that, when you're playing against a team, we'll get to them on the other side in a minute, versus that doesn't have a starting quarterback, missing their wide receiver 2, missing their wide receiver 3, missing their RB1. You just have to keep the ball. And that's literally what today ended up being. Drake May in the first half had 41 passing yards in this game. 41 passing yards. And I believe he also had a 56 passer rating. He was not good in this game. And really, outside of a few run plays, they didn't get much from him. And the longest throw of the day for the Patriots was actually the play they ran a flea flicker on that ended out to Mac Hollins, who had a 31-yard reception. And so 31 of 86 yards came on that reception. He got sacked 5 times in this game, missed multiple throws, but those runs that he did, he kept having them that kept extending the play. And I will say there are some very controversial calls. It's not going to generate the kind of maybe incessant media coverage as the Buffalo game last week, but the 4th and inches play they had at the 13-yard line that the officials gave them, but then the play was reviewed by Sean Payton. on the overhead cam, it doesn't appear as if Drake May crossed the threshold for the first down, but because the ruling on the field was already a first down, they stuck with it. But man, just a great season for the New England Patriots to go 14-3 and then to win 3 straight games in the playoffs off the back of this defense. That is something that for the defensive players especially, they can hang their hat on.
Yeah, no question. And a lot of people on X were talking about how the Patriots had a very easy schedule and, they got lucky in the playoffs. Folks, you don't go to the Super Bowl and get lucky. You can only play who is on your schedule. And they did beat the Ravens. They did beat the Bills. They had some good wins. They beat Houston, the number 1 defense in the league. They beat the Chargers. And I know the Broncos didn't have their starting quarterback. And if Bo Nix was there, maybe, as you mentioned, Swipe, we're talking about a little bit of a different scenario. Heck, I mean, if Sean Payton kicks a field goal rather than go for it on 4th down before the snow started, maybe we're talking about something different. But ultimately, the Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl. The time from the Brady era to now the Drake May era wasn't very long. So Patriots fans got to be happy about that. So let's go and talk about the Broncos, though, right? They put up a great fight without Bo Nix. You mentioned it. They had a couple of wide receivers who were banged up in this one. They fall short. They go home after what was really a very good, if not great, 2025 season. For more on that, let's check in with Sari Bettinger with Locked On Broncos.
Broncos' awesome 2025 season has officially come to a close in the AFC Championship game. The Broncos fell 10-7 to the New England Patriots and just couldn't quite overcome both the loss of Bo Nix and the elements. And you can't help but wonder, is Sean Payton going to second guess himself for not taking the points when he had the opportunity when the weather was not a factor? The Broncos up 7-0, gave up and passed on the opportunity to take what would have been a pretty easy chip shot field goal for Will Lutz, instead trying to go for it on 4th down, really trying to take control of the game, and they just couldn't quite pick it up, and the Patriots end up winning the game by 3 points. And certainly it was a great season for the Denver Broncos, dominating defense, and they played awesome defensively in this game. But once again, you go back to the drawing board on the offensive side of the ball, pass catchers, an issue. And obviously we all look at the health of Bo Nix, who seems to be on the right trajectory after his ankle injury.
Yes, it's a lot of stuff that goes into this game. The Broncos pass catching unit has been an issue all year. They led the NFL in drops this season. Them and the Jaguars are at the top of the league. Courtland Sutton with a huge drop on a 3rd and 9 in the first half, that the ball hit him right in the hip, 2 hands on the ball, drop. Will Lutz, who's a very accurate kicker, he gets a kick blocked in this game, but also misses a 54-yard field goal. And the Broncos have turned down multiple 50-plus yard field goals this year because they just don't believe Will Lutz has that leg. Misses another one. And, Fab, for me, when you're playing a backup quarterback, you're already down so much, plus not having your starting running back and having 2 receivers out. You just need other people to make a play. And so you expect Courtland Sutton, the veteran, to come down with 3rd down catches. You expect for Will Lutz, captain, to come through with these field goals in order to put you in a more advantageous situation. Now, Sean Payton, he went for it on 4th down. It was 4th and short. And so perhaps he should have ran the ball or maybe gotten a shotgun and just let Jarrett Stidham get it and try to pick them apart. But he tries to do a sprint out. The play doesn't work. But it's just little things. When you are missing your best player on offense, which is Bo Nix, and then you continue to have little mistakes here and there, it just cost you a Super Bowl berth. Now, if you're a Denver Broncos fan, obviously it's frustrating because you feel like you earned the opportunity to make the Super Bowl and win the AFC Championship. But my goodness, man, the Broncos defense, the story won't be told correctly, but they played lights out. And not just when the snow became a snow flurry game, but when it was in the first half, the Broncos defense was everywhere. Patrick Surtain was phenomenal in this game and continued to prove why many believe he's the best corner in the league. Nick Bonito was out on the last possession that Drake May ran the ball to get the 1st down and then secure the win as well. So just a lot of just really, really, really poorly timed injuries really catapulted this Patriots win and really doomed the Broncos season.
Yeah, and no question about it. Jarrett Stidham, clearly not the same quarterback as Bo Nix. And I guess Broncos can go out there and say, what might have been. At the end of the day, they still had a great season. I know that's not going to feel good for Broncos fans right now, but the future is very, very bright in the Mile High City. Coming up next, we'll talk about Jesse Minter and what his role as the new head coach in Baltimore means for the Ravens moving forward. As Arnold Schwarzenegger would say, stick around. And then I'll start. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to stay locked into every moment than with PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. With football season coming down to its final stretch, now's the perfect time to close it out strong. PrizePicks makes watching the game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around player projections. There's no drafts, there's no waiting, just football action all the way through the playoffs. PrizePicks is incredibly easy to get started on. I've been using the app all season long, and for several years, you pick 2 or more players and choose more or less on their projections. It makes watching the games way more engaging, especially during the playoffs and, of course, the eventual big game. And it's a great way to keep playing fantasy football even after a season-long league that is long over. And you guys know I love me some fantasy football. And you know what? One of my favorite features is the early payouts. That lets you cash out if a player gets off to a hot start. I also love being able to mix stars from different teams and build lineups that fit how I watch the game. And the new social feed also makes it fun to follow friends, share lineups, and get inspiration from other players. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, my friends, thank you for making Locked On NFL Game Night your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And if you haven't already done so, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You get access to ad-free audio feeds from Locked On NFL Game Night and Locked On Dynasty Football, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You'll also receive an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of the show. Go to LockedOnDynasty.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Swiper, so we know one team that's going to the Super Bowl. We're still waiting on team number 2. So let's talk about some of the big coaching hires that have happened across the league. And we'll start off in Baltimore, where the Ravens have hired former Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter to be their new head coach. He was a DC in LA for 2 years, and he held the same position for Michigan in the previous 2 seasons. And that, of course, was under Jim Harbaugh. For more on this move, let's go to Kevin Ostreicher with Locked On Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens have their guy. Jesse Minter is the new head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. I'm Kevin Ostreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. This is a great hire for the Ravens. Minter was widely seen as one of the most popular head coach candidates on the market this coaching cycle. Comes back to Baltimore after spending a handful of years with the Ravens. Familiarity for Baltimore. That Chargers defense was very low in defensive spending. Put up some great numbers under Minter, and he's going to hopefully turn that unit around that has seen some struggles, and hopefully he will be able to maximize Lamar Jackson's window in order to propel him and the team to a Super Bowl. Next up is filling out his staff. Offensive coordinator going to be a big topic of conversation, but for now, the Ravens get their guy, and now this team can move forward with next steps. So for more on Minter and the Ravens, be sure to check out the Locked On Ravens podcast and subscribe on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Great. Fix the defense. They have a really good players on that end of the ball. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton, Roquan come to mind, Marlon Humphrey. Cool. Who's the OC going to be? That's my question. I want to know who is going to be the person leading Lamar into 2026. Derrick Henry will still be there. Are you going to get wide receiver talent to help Lamar? What are you doing at the tight end position? They believe they have a guy, but we've been waiting on him to step into true tight end 1 territory now for 3 years. Maybe he does it, but you know for sure Lamar needs more help at the pass catching unit, and he needs an offensive coordinator that can utilize his mobility and passing and also just game script. Are you going to have better game scripts so that way the Ravens have less lulls offensively under this next administration? That is going to be the question. I hope Jesse Minter does a great job. I hope he gets the defense back where it belongs. But who they get at OC is going to mean everything for how good this hire is.
Yeah, and that's certainly something that we're going to be keeping tabs on. On the defensive side, you look at the Chargers last year. They were 5th in total defense. They were 5th in pass defense. They were 8th in rushing defense. Now, by comparison, the Ravens, 24th in total defense, 30th in pass defense, and 10th in run defense. But Minter, it's like a Baltimore type of hire, right? You kind of expected that to be a defensive-minded head coach hire. And you're 100% correct. What does that Ravens offense look like next season now that Todd Monken's gone? What sort of philosophy does the new OC bring to town? And, you mentioned it. You still got Derrick Henry. I mean, the dude's a unicorn. He's in his early 30s. He's still, almost winning rushing titles. And Lamar had a bad year. He was injured. He'll bounce back. Zay Flowers has established himself as a pretty good one, but you could get a compliment in there. They did extend Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely's a free agent. So did they decide they're going to keep him or let him walk as a free agent? Time will tell. The Ravens definitely need to do some work on the offensive side of the football, though. And once we know about who the OC is in Baltimore, I think then, as you mentioned, Swipa, we can kind of grade this. But for right now, to me, it seems like a typical Baltimore hire going with that defensive mind.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I think for me, fixing the Ravens defense is great and all, but you're going to have to get to a situation where their offense, when they get 10, 15-point leads, you don't squander them in the second half of games. And I think re-signing Lamar, that's going to be a very big topic of offseason that we're going to talk about a lot, obviously, this year, but making sure that you get the offensive personnel. I think 21st century, that outside of Zay Flowers, it's not like, hey, Lamar, save us. Make some magic happen. So I'm really curious to see what they do still to make sure they shore up that spot.
Yeah, and also, too, I mean, let's not forget, Lamar Jackson and his playing style, listen, he's going to get banged up. He's been a great quarterback. I mean, boy, what a steal he was when he came out of Louisville. And you also have to factor in, though, you're not getting any younger. And he's a running type quarterback who's going to take more hits than a typical quarterback. So you got to protect him. And you also have to give him some more weapons on the offensive side of the football. So he's not maybe running as much. He's always going to run a bunch, but maybe not running as much. And he has more options in the passing game. I'm not sure why they extended Mark Andrews. I kind of think he's maybe not over the hill, but he's certainly past his prime. But we will find out what Baltimore does with the OC job here probably shortly in the next few weeks. Coming up next, we're going to talk about how Mike McCarthy will take over for Mike Tomlin as the new head coach in Pittsburgh. Will his presence in the Steel City mean another season of Aaron Rodgers for Steelers fans? Find out next. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Now, if I needed to hire someone for this show, and why would I? Because Swipe is awesome, but I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need, real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. All right, Swiper, we are back, and let's get into the Steel City. The Steelers, they hire Mike McCarthy to be their new head coach. He was previously the head man in Dallas. Don't you think I know about that? Where he did lead the Cowboys to 3 12-win seasons in 5 years. Of course, not much success in the postseason. Previously, 13 years as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, where he had Aaron Rodgers. For more on this one, let's go to Christopher Carter with Locked on Steelers.
Hey everyone, Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast with a breaking news update. The Steelers are hiring Mike McCarthy, former head coach of the Green Bay Packers and Dallas Cowboys, as their new head coach to follow up on Mike Tomlin. This is a stunning turnaround for the Steelers, the team that looked like they were waiting to see if they could get a chance to interview Chris Schuler, Rams defensive coordinator, and Nate Scheelhaus, their passing game coordinator. The Steelers had typically gone with their last three hires with coaches in their 30s who were defensive assistants, which lined up perfectly to get Chris Schuler, who's been highly touted as one of the best coaching prospects of this hiring cycle. But with the Steelers making this move, this signs that maybe they're trying to bring back Aaron Rodgers for one more go. It makes me wonder if Mike McCarthy is a very temporary hire. Either way, this is a big shock to Steelers fans everywhere. We'll get more on the Locked On Steelers podcast reacting to this. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Carter Critiques on all your social apps. And remember to get the Locked On Steelers podcast on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube.
Yes, the word of the week is befuddled about this Mike McCarthy hiring, because Mike McCarthy, I think, is a good stabilizing coach. That if you have a veteran team, veteran unit, and you want to just continue to try to raise the level maybe of professionalism, McCarthy is shown to do a good job with the Cowboys, with the Packers. But in terms of offensive ingenuity, I would not associate that with Mike McCarthy. I also think that given that he is already a older coach coming into this situation, they've had 4 coaches now, I think in the last 60 years, something like that, 54 years. And for them to go from Mike Tomlin to McCarthy is very interesting. And it wouldn't make sense for this to be an Aaron Rodgers move because he's 40. Like, that's not your future. You need to get a new young quarterback in the building. And a part of the reason Steelers, while many Steelers fans have felt the way they felt about the Steelers team, is because they haven't had a quarterback since prime Ben Roethlisberger, and they held on to Ben Roethlisberger for forever. And then they got Kenny Pickett and Justin Fields and Russell Wilson to try to fill in that gap. They need to get an actual number one QB, and then you build from there. And I would hope that they would have gotten somebody that could maybe build with that player for some time. But maybe the ownership, they're one of the best owner groups in the NFL. Maybe they believe that Mike McCarthy can be the guy for the next 10 plus years. They love stability. But in terms of coaching hires, maybe they didn't feel like there was a better option amongst young, emerging talent to put in this spot. Or maybe they feel like somebody like Davis Webb, who's 31 years old, might be a year away. Let's give him another chance. I just don't feel completely confident with this. And I hope, for the sake of Steelers fans, this does work out for them in the long term.
See, for me, I look at things through like a fantasy lens, and I actually like the move from a fantasy perspective. But hiring Mike McCarthy to replace Mike Tomlin, it reminds me of, that meme that you find on social media with the 3 Spider-Mans like pointing at each other. Listen to this. Mike Tomlin, 19 seasons as a head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. His winning percentage, .628. Mike McCarthy, 18 seasons as a head coach in the National Football League. His winning percentage, .608. Mike Tomlin, 8-12 in the postseason. Mike McCarthy, 11-11 in the postseason. Mike Tomlin, division wins, 8. Mike McCarthy, division wins, 8. Mike Tomlin, Super Bowl wins, 1. Mike McCarthy, Super Bowl wins, 1. You kind of get my drift here. So I don't mind the move from a fantasy standpoint. I understand that we're talking real football here and that Steelers fans wanted somebody younger and somebody that Mike McCarthy, I'm not sure why has stink on him. He won 12 games, 3 years for the Cowboys. He was a Super Bowl winner in Green Bay. You could argue, well, he had Aaron Rodgers, and I understand all of that. He's just not like the sexiest pick, but I do wonder if, like you said, maybe this is just one of those, 2 or 3 year sort of coaching situations where eventually they bring in a younger man, but that also has not been Pittsburgh's MO. Chuck Noll was the coach of the Steelers forever. And then, Bill Cowher was the coach of the Steelers forever. And Mike Tomlin was there for 19 years. So, yeah, it's a little bit odd. But Pittsburgh has a lot of work to do on the offensive side of the football, Swipe, but they really do. They have no number 2 wide receiver. Jonnu Smith was an absolute disaster there, and now Arthur Smith's gone. He's going to be coaching in college, which may be good from a fantasy standpoint. So they've got to do some work on the offensive side of the football. I don't know that the Steelers are any better or worse than they were this past season. They did win the division, and they did go to the playoffs. They just weren't that great of a team. So for me, fantasy, I think it's a win. Real football Steelers fans, they're not real thrilled about it, Swipa.
No, I mean, I understand your perspective there, but I just think that in terms of they need to acquire more talent. Now, their running game was pretty diversified this year. I think they had a nice two-headed backfield situation. Their tight end room is cool. Their wide receiver room isn't great. And then their quarterback room is up in the air and questionable. So they don't have elite offensive talent at all. And their defense wasn't as good as you thought it would be either. So I just think that this team, they're in a development period. They absolutely should be trying to tank in some ways, like at least to acquire young blue chip level players on the roster and continue to build forward. But it feels like with Mike McCarthy, they might be trying to still ride a, 8-win season, 9-win season next year and not do what they actually need to do, which is actually press the eject button and just allow your team to be bad. Clear out some of the cap space. Get to the point where you can get top 5, top 7 picks, and then you get high picks in the first, high pick in the second, high pick in the third. That way you can actually add real talent to your roster. But I don't know. Like I said, I hope it works out for them, but we'll see what happens from here.
Yeah, and remember, Ken Gainwell is a free agent too, so they're going to have to try and bring him back. It's not going to cost a lot of money to bring Ken Gainwell back. They also have Caleb Johnson, who is an abject disaster in his rookie year. So I think, as you mentioned, the backfield, I think as long as they bring Gainwell back, I think they're going to be good to go. They really need to focus on bringing in wide receiver help for whoever the quarterback's going to be, whether it's Aaron Rodgers. And let's not forget, there's some quarterbacks that can be available in the offseason. Kyler Murray's probably on his way out. You look at Kirk Cousins. Maybe Atlanta decides that they're going to potentially move on from him, or maybe they're going to keep him around and because they're worried about Michael Penix Jr. There are quarterbacks out there that could be on the move. Justin Fields is one, but they're definitely not going back to that direction. There's no question about that. And we've seen more and more trades in the off seasons for the National Football League over the last decade or so. So maybe Pittsburgh makes moves to improve the quarterback position, maybe not bringing back Aaron Rodgers because, listen, he kind of looked like a shell of his former self down the stretch. Pittsburgh, probably not a team that I am going to be putting in my bingo card as Super Bowl contenders next season. But also, I don't know that they're not going to continue to be contenders in the AFC North. And ultimately, I think that's probably what Steelers fans are hoping for. Who knows? Mike McCarthy may not be long for Pittsburgh. But for now, well, Steelers fans, Mike McCarthy is your new head man. Thank you guys for tuning in today to Locked On NFL Game Night. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On NFL Game Night and Locked On Dynasty Football so you don't miss any episodes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On NFL Game Night and Locked On Dynasty Football ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedondynasty.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On NFL. And just real quick, even though we've only got one game left and it's the big game in Santa Clara, Swipa and I are going to be here all offseason talking about the big moves in the NFL, coaching hires, free agency, the draft, trades, all of it. And we're going to be doing it with the help of our friends across the Locked On Podcast Network. So don't think Swipa and I are going anywhere after this week and after Super Bowl 60, because we will be around all offseason, right, Swipa?
Yes, sir. I can't wait to get into it. Honestly, off-season draft talks are probably, outside of talking about the game, my favorite thing to do. So the fact that we're going to be able to get into draft boards, mock draft, what should the Raiders do, rebuilding the Philadelphia Eagles, and what do they need in order to get back to the top of the mountain, and the Kansas City Chiefs, how do they reestablish themselves at the top in the cream de la cream of the AFC? There's going to be a lot of great discussion to be had, and I hope you all will join us for all of those great episodes we're going to have for you this offseason.
Everybody have a great week, and Swipa and I will be right back here next week. We'll see you then.